Welcome to the groundbreaking news program that delves into the heart of Mormonism, your weekly window into the unique intersection of news, history, and culture that resonates with the tapestry of Mormonism. So whether you're tuning in from the heart of Utah or joining us from around the world, your favorite news program starts now, where news meets insight and the stories of our faith unfold.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mormon Newscast. It is Monday, 6 p.m. on July 1st. I'm Rebecca Biblioteca. I am joined by my esteemed colleagues. Bill Reel, how are you on the very first day of July? This is kind of amazing.
I am doing so good, Rebecca. How are you? Oh, I'm looking the wrong way. I got to go this way. Dang it.
I know. Right. Sometimes podcasters do that. We're like this or like that. I don't even know where to look. How are you, RFM?
I'm fine, thank you. And I agree with you. It's amazing that today is the first day of July.
I just think by amazing, I mean that the summer has kind of crept up on me for some reason. It's been cold in Utah. It was snowing like 3 weeks ago. Suddenly the sun is out and it seems like it's summer.
Well, apparently, I think that I heard somewhere that you were suffering from heat stroke yesterday.
I have a little bit of a sunburn. Does it show through on the air? I don't know if it does or not. I was outside.
No, I don't think so.
A nice tan.
I don't look as pale as I normally do. I've gotten that comment before. So, well, we'll see how the summer progresses. We'll see what happens. All right, let's get started. I will review the top stories for you guys, and then we'll dive right in. We are going to be talking about Kyle Filipowski and Mormon Grooming. That's going to be my story. Then RFM is going to update us on Tim Ballard. Believe it or not, we haven't talked about him for months, but he is back in the news in a big way with several stories to go over about Tim. And then Bill Reel will finish off with the LDS Church in American politics. And this is going to be good. I know we all just watched the debate, so we're going to have a lot to say about that. So excellent. I will lead off then. There's my name. Keep us all in order with the first story. And I don't know how many of you have seen this. It kind of started out slow midweek and then just like a speeding train, tons of momentum. And the theme of the story is the question, groomed by Mormons, ? And this is a sports story, which is amazing that I'm taking it, but I am. So we're going to go through a couple articles. I've kind of put them together. The main one we're going to be talking about is from SB Nation. The title is The Wild Kyle Filipowski Girlfriend Saga Explained as Best We Can. And the reason a lot of these article titles are saying this is because it's just got a ton of moving pieces. It's kind of hard to get through. So hopefully the slides that I put together will help everybody. And yes, there is a Mormon component. People are like, what does this have to do with Mormonism? Well, you will find out. The subtitle of this article is The Reported Reason Kyle Filipowski Fell Out of the First Round in the 2024 NBA draft and is wilder than you probably could have ever guessed. The draft was last week, and this was the catalyst for everything that happened here. So I'll just kind of read through this slide. Kyle Filipowski should have been a top 20 pick in the 2024 NBA draft. Instead, we saw one of the most puzzling draft drops in recent memory. In the span of 24 hours, Filipowski went from being mocked as high as the early teens, meaning he would be picked very early, to falling out of the first round altogether, earning the unfortunate reward of turning up in the NBA draft green room for likely first round draft picks and then waiting all night without hearing his name called and without getting picked. He was eventually taken in the second round on day 2 of the draft, with the Utah Jazz selecting him number 32 overall. Obviously, something had the teams spooked about Filipowski, but nobody could have predicted how the saga would unfold over the internet on Thursday. And I can relate to this because I was often the last one picked, elementary school, playground. I'm sure neither of you had this problem, but I did, unfortunately. So I had glasses, really big glasses. So people judge people with glasses as not being athletic. Not true whatsoever. Anyway, let's see what happens next. Okay, this is a little clip of him being consoled by his girlfriend at having not been chosen as he should have been, probably around number 12 or 13, instead number 32. Oh. So sad. And there she is, his lovely girlfriend. And this becomes important pretty quickly here. So concerns of an older girlfriend. The first reports of something being off in the Filipowski camp came on Thursday morning as ESPN draft analyst Jonathan Giovanni explained on the Low Post podcast what he'd heard from the teams in regard to the Duke big man. NBA teams are talking about the fact that they question his girlfriend being so much older than him, and why is he estranged from his family because of this whole situation. It's a very, very odd situation. I personally, says this analyst, don't understand why it would cause him to drop like this into the second round. So right away, we learned there's something to do with a girlfriend and a family estrangement that might have caused some of the coaches that should have been like all over him, ready to pick him very, very quickly, might have caused some concern with these coaches. So the couple got engaged. Sometimes in these articles, she's referred to as his girlfriend, but they are engaged and they're going to get married in August. As it pertains to the draft stock, Filipowski is 20 years old and his fiance is 25. So the age difference is a little unusual, but it's hardly earth-shattering. But it's hardly the kind of earth-shattering revelation that would normally tank a draft stock, meaning where they place. Similarly, there have been plenty of prospective rookies who have been estranged from their parents, and it didn't cause them to fall like Filipowski did. So there's a missing piece to the puzzle, and it wasn't long before the internet got to work trying to figure out what in the heck was going on. So let's talk about what we know about Caitlin Hutchinson. This is his girlfriend. So she graduated from high school, and you can see these are posts from Instagram in May of 2015. And then she graduated from the University of Alabama in December of 2018. She got her master's degree at Louisiana State University, worked on that between 21 and 22, completed that in 22. And social media messages say that she is a longtime friend of the family and also Kyle's former babysitter. It's always the former babysitter, isn't it? So, but again, age is relative. There's all kinds of considerations here. So we'll kind of go on and see what they're talking about.
The hand that rocks the cradle.
Yeah, the hand that rocks the cradle. Yep, that was it. So I think the big thing that people started looking at as they started going through the internet and social media was this prom photo. This is his high school prom. Here it is. As people combed through social media on Thursday morning, a photo of Filipowski and Hutchinson from his high school prom began catching everybody's eye. It shows the couple together, and it's dated May 21st of 2022. Filipowski was born in November of 2003. At the time of the photo, he was 18 years old, and Hutchinson was 24. Even if we assume the first time they met was at prom, and this is the article speaking, it's still an adult dating a minor. However, a now deleted comment on the Filipowski prom photo from Hutchinson read, "1 year with my favorite person." So that kind of alludes to the idea that perhaps the relationship started a year earlier when he was 17 and she was 23. Now, I did look up the age of consent in Alabama where they are, and it's 16. So again,
I thought maybe it was 8.
What?
I thought maybe it was 8 in Alabama.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke like that, but I decided it would be in poor taste. So I'm glad that you did it for me, Abraham.
Sorry to all of our listeners in Alabama. I was just
That's exactly what I was thinking. Good heavens. Have some self-awareness. Anyway, so nothing illegal, but, perhaps questionable. We'll kind of go on and see. So, and then she kind of put a post up that said, my heart. So obviously it's more than, and I think you can see from the photo, perhaps more than just a friendship or a family friend stepping in to go to prom. I know that happens sometimes. I do know people who couldn't find a date and called upon a cousin or, a friend to fill in. So I'm not talking about myself. Not one bit.
Like this too.
Exactly.
By the way, I want to make something clear. I don't see anything in any of this that would cause somebody to drop in their standing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. I don't think it's really that much of a story, but I guess it gets better, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of people, I did a podcast on this last week, and a lot of people are like, why are you talking about this? What is this? And I'm like, just keep watching. Keep listening. Seriously, it gets bigger and stranger. And this is why we are podcasting on it. And we will talk about on the Mormon Newscast anytime we see Mormonism mentioned in the national news. And this has been in Cultural Hall. Oh my gosh, he's so funny. Sorry, I have to take a minute to laugh.
Cultural Hall said my babysitter didn't wait for me. Was it? Or wouldn't wait for me?
Oh, that's
didn't
so
wait
sad.
for me in a sad face.
Exactly. But the point is, this is in every major paper, except for, interestingly, it's not in the Deseret News and it's not in the Tribune. They do talk about Kyle being picked up as a draft pick for the Jazz, but they don't mention all this intrigue. If you Google his name, so many headlines everywhere. And this is why we're talking about this. So let's move on and see what else is happening. I just wanted to make it clear to everybody because it is confusing. And over the days, as people put the timeline together, there was some confusion over the dates. So she was born September 17th, 1997. Kyle was born November 7th, 2003. That's 6 years, 2 months, and 20 days difference. So to give you an idea, there was some mention that, as a family friend, something happened when he was 11. They were friends. They hung out. She would have been 17. An 11-year-old and a 17-year-old hanging out. When Kyle was 17, as alluded to in the prom picture, and they were sort of maybe starting a relationship, she would have been 23 years old. When Kyle was 18, when that prom picture was taken, she was 24. And right now they are engaged. He is 20 and she's 26. So that's the difference there.
Do we know how old he was when she started babysitting him?
It wasn't really specific, and we'll get into that a little bit more. It was sort of like a scenario where she's a longtime family friend. So just like it sounded to me like hanging out, doing lots of things together. But that's not unusual. When I was 17, I babysat kids that were 12. One time somebody hired me to babysit somebody. I was 16 and the kid was 14. And I was kind of like, this is weird. Do you really need a babysitter? I did it. I needed the cash.
Babysit people who are younger than they are, substantially so.
Yeah,
usually that's what it is.
You don't usually end up engaged to them, though.
Yeah, and that's a different story. So, but it gets more unusual. I mean, right now people might think, "Well, are you worried about age? Age doesn't matter." And true, but there's some other factors here that makes age maybe matter more than you might think it is.
I'm all ears.
Here's where Mormonism comes in, because as I said, we would not just share a sensational story unless there was an element of Mormonism in it. So the Filipowski family starts to weigh in after all the draft pick scenario. And that's his family. That's his mom, his dad, both former basketball players in college. So very athletic. And he's got 3 brothers. One's a twin and they're all very athletic. The twin, I believe, also plays for some college or some team. So the family says a critical component of this story, in addition to the relationship, were reports of Filipowski had become estranged from his family over dating Hutchinson. It wasn't long before people claiming to be Kyle's older brother, Daniel, and his mother, named Becky, went on Twitter to try to explain their side of things. So the family starts posting about what they think might have happened or just their scenario in general. So I won't read all of this thread, but Daniel, the older brother, says, "I'm Kyle's oldest brother, and you all don't have a clue to the extent of this story that has to do with his girlfriend. There's a story that has been pushed under the table for nearly 2 years now." And then he kind of goes back and forth about trying to get in touch with a sports analyst to maybe tell the story, learn more of the story. But his final post right here says, but look up and read on Mormon grooming and brainwashing, and you'll find some introductory details in there to connect some dots into the story that's going on here. So right away he goes there, Mormon grooming and brainwashing. On the surface, what do you guys think? If you just came across that post, what would you think that meant? An older girlfriend and Mormon grooming and brainwashing.
Well, this happens all the time. This is not remarkable within the context of Mormonism. I mean, that's the job of young, attractive girls, isn't it? To get non-member boys baptized. We used to call it date them, dunk them, and drop them. Although she's not dropping him.
Well, when you're in the NBA, you got to think twice before you drop them. So, no, I thought that too. Fellowshipping or, flirt to convert. We've heard that, where there definitely is pressure from young women on men to, follow the straight and narrow and be involved in the church. What do you think, Bill?
Our founder, I think, did quite a bit of grooming. And so you look up Mormonism and grooming, and I have to imagine that Joseph Smith, the founding prophet, also shows up in some of that research.
Right. What makes this different, though, is that it's a girl, but it's also, it sounds like sort of her family, and I do understand that scenario where somebody's in a family and the family may not be in the church anymore. And that person is embraced and loved by a family that still is in the church. And they kind of, draw them away from the family that isn't so much. I mean, I think that happens a lot where somebody's embraced. They would call it fellowshipping, I think, embraced by a family.
Yeah, and
So let's
usually it
go
doesn't.
on.
I was going to say the flirt to convert, the date 'em, dunk 'em, and drop 'em doesn't usually end up with complete estrangement from
Right.
the convert boy's family.
Right. Yeah, this is different. This is more extreme. And again, this is just the brother saying it's a bigger picture. There was, brainwashing, there was grooming. So let's see what the mother has to say. She doesn't specifically talk about Mormonism, but she says Caitlin is 28 and she's not 28. She's 26 with an end game 3 years ago to have a diamond ring on her hand while Kyle left Duke, where he was playing in college. He was still in high school. She couldn't find a spouse in her circle, so she clawed an immature moneymaker. Getting ready for the payout and getting his genetic material. Got to put a bun in the oven soon. So she has a little more of a harsh, gold digger, I think is what the mother is alluding to. Is that how you guys see it?
Yeah, I think so. Well, she succeeded in her goal. She's got the ring on her finger, doesn't she? I don't
guess
think
so.
she needs the bun in the oven. She's got the ring on the finger and a wedding
Yeah.
date in
Yeah.
what, next month now? It's July 1st.
Yeah,
It's
in
August.
August.
It's going to be,
Yeah.
right?
In August. And I do kind of think, I have 3 sons and I think I'm a mom. And if I did see an older girl with my 17-year-old, 18-year-old, even 19-year-old, somebody that was that much older that seemed to be having a lot of influence on one of my sons, I think I would be concerned. I think especially if it was something that was pulling him away from the family. And then you throw in, religion. I don't know. It's
Rebecca,
interesting.
can I ask you something? I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it's nailed down, or maybe I wasn't paying attention when you mentioned it. We know that Caitlin is Mormon. Is
Well,
that
we're
right?
going to get into that because that's another question. And I podcasted about this and people came at me saying, how do we know she's Mormon? I will show you. Give me 2 more slides.
And also, do we know that there was a conversion in the baptism?
No, that we do not know at all. In fact, I have a couple pictures of him wearing a cross. So that's actually very confusing too. So I will show you that. Here we go. Let's go to the next one. The brother insists, this is Daniel again talking about the scenario. His brother says that the staff, and this is where he played for at Durham, the staff had direct knowledge of what they deemed to be an inappropriate relationship, but the coaches turned a blind eye during Kyle's lone season in Durham. Duke had also been quiet on the response to Daniel Filipowski's comments, which only contributed to make this story, all the more bizarre. So the brother's saying, all of you guys saw this. He was young, he was playing basketball for you when he was 17, 18, 19, 20. You saw this woman with him all the time and nobody said a word. So the brother is going at everybody saying this is everybody's fault, kind of. All right, let's go to this next thing. So,
well, what were they supposed to do, and why is it inappropriate? Just because of the age difference?
Exactly.
Are the people supposed to, force them apart with a crowbar and say you guys can't be together all the time?
See, and I know, and that's where it's hard. That's what we're not exactly sure. So let's see. I'm going through my notes. The people, the parents.
Did the state have a law? I mean, 17 and 23 or whatever. That
it's all legal, even if they were having
16.
sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
16 is where it's all fine. You know what I mean? So hold on, I'm digging through.
And we're not saying they even had sex, because she's a good Mormon girl. Maybe if you can actually demonstrate that, Rebecca.
Yes, if I will be able to demonstrate that. So I'm going to have to lean way forward to read this. I didn't put it in my notes. This is, look at this. Thank you so much, Bill.
She's the best.
So this was another post that I came up. People are kind of weighing in, people who are familiar with the situation. So this person says their parents are family friends. So they grew up pretty close. Her dad was in the military, so they ended up moving away. So she wasn't in Kyle's life for a while. She popped back up his senior year of high school when he got national recognition and turned 18. She was 24 or 25 at the time. See, everybody's still trying to figure out how old she is. They started dating, went to prom together. And at this time, her parents, big Mormons, this is Caitlin's family, told Kyle's parents that she is good for Kyle and would take good care of him at Duke because he goes off to college to play at Duke. So sounds like the Mormon parents are saying, hey, just let my daughter watch out for him. She'll keep an eye. She used to babysit for him. She'll keep doing it. He'll keep him out of drugs, keep him away from partying, etc. His parents, Kyle's parents, immediately got a red flag, given the timing of her coming back into his life and given the things they were saying. So she bought a house, this is Caitlin, next to Duke's campus where he's playing basketball.
She bought a house?
Yes, this is what I'm saying. This is an affluent family.
Apparently.
And very Mormon, as I understand. She
I
bought
don't
a
have a house.
She bought a house next to Duke's campus. She walked Kyle to and from every class. He slept at her house and spent every moment there. She wouldn't let him hang out with teammates or attend team activities. She went to every game, home and away. She told him that his family was bad for him and that they were holding him back. They were against her, etc. So he cut everybody off, twin brother included. And last year, before March Madness of his freshman year, he cut everyone off. He gave all tickets to his games to her and her friends and her family.
What was the source of this again, Rebecca? This
is just someone on social media that says, I know the family.
Okay.
So again, can you trust that? I don't know. Some of the things seem to track the time frames and what the brothers are saying, that she popped back into the life, started flying out to games, started attending things even when he was much younger. So, but again, it is just someone's opinion on social media. But as you're trying to reconstruct what happened, this maybe gives a window. And I can see now why the family would be upset if she's telling him, your family's against you, they're no good for you. Of course, you could look at it the other way. Maybe he already had some issues with his family and he found a safe harbor with her family. There's all different ways to look at it, and we really don't know. So, all right. Any more thoughts on that? And I will move forward.
Waiting for the Mormon connection.
I know you are. I'm getting to it. Okay. So this is, hold on, another person who said, again, people are weighing in. People know the family or know the situation. And this person says at the end of this post here, another staggering fact that hasn't been talked about is that Kyle also cut off all of his high school friends and coaches, cut everybody out. So basically everybody who was in his life has been completely cut out besides her family. So a lot of these posts and things I were reading does seem to confirm this isolationism for whatever reason, and whether it's how he wants it or there was undue influence, we do not know. Okay. And this is his other brother. Like I said, he's got 3 brothers. There are 4 brothers in this family. And the other brother says for the last 2 years or so, he was a senior in high school and she was about 8 years older than him, give or take. So again, people aren't quite right. She's 6 years older. She flew up from Alabama or some southern state where her family lived and would catch flights to Massachusetts. Now, these are his high school games. She flew into his high school games to watch him play, to see him play basketball games. Then she started hanging out after the game. Now, in high school, he was like at a prep school, so he wasn't living at home, as I understand it. He was off at a high school. So she would start hanging out after the game, staying around for the weekend, etc. And then when he went to Duke, she followed. They got an off-campus place, I heard, and he stopped hanging out with friends and teams, etc. So you have a lot of his family saying this is what was happening. You have some other people that say they know the family saying this is what is happening. All right. Okay. One more slide and then we'll get to the Mormon connection. This is just the summary in case people feel I've been rambling and you can't follow this, but it is so confusing. Okay, let me get to the summary. Hold on one second here. All right, in summary, if we combine the accounts of the Filipowski family, they appear to be alleging that Caitlin Hutchinson began a relationship with Filipowski as a high schooler with the intent of grooming him and converting him to the Mormon religion. According to their allegations, this includes a long-term play to become engaged to him shortly after he left Duke and with the NBA on the horizon. This appears to have caused friction between Filipowski and his family, with Kyle seemingly choosing his relationship with Caitlin over his family. And again, according to their tweets and Giovanni's accounting of what NBA executives are saying, severing a relationship with coaches. Then the relationship with Caitlin and possibly reports of being groomed into Mormonism damaged his draft stock by making Filipowski either too uncomfortable to talk about this scenario in the interviews, which scared off teams, or by raising red flags about Hutchinson's influence on his life. So that's what they're saying. they're saying that the coaches just got skittery. This is weird. There's influence. We don't know what's going on. She's much older. We're not sure. He's estranged. And apparently in his interviews, he couldn't give satisfactory answers to the whole scenario because goodness knows, I'm sure with all the draft picks across time, there are different scenarios with family and things like that. But in this case, it was a red flag to coaches. And I think do you remember Manti Te'o? Do you remember that scenario? That was an LDS NFL player who had a girlfriend that died in the middle of the season. It was a huge, huge deal. And then it turned out that he'd been catfished. He'd never met her. It was all online. It was all fake, and so maybe people are skittery thinking, I don't know, Mormons are unusual. I'm not sure what they were thinking. All right. So is Caitlin LDS? To answer RFM's question, I don't know if she is LDS now, but she was LDS. Here are some pictures from youth conference in 2014. There she is in the middle. Talks about youth conference outside of the church at a mission homecoming, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So again, I can't 100% say that she's LDS, but she certainly has been posting pictures over the last 10 years of doing LDS things. And we do have a couple social media posts saying that her family are big Mormons. So I don't know. Do you think that's enough? Would that stand up in court, RFM, that she is possibly LDS?
Oh, I think it would that she was 10 years ago, but she probably still is. I just don't understand why she's not encouraging the young lad to go on his mission.
That is a question too. If she's that uber of an LDS that she wants to pull away him away from his family who is not LDS, he should be preparing for a mission at age 18, 19, certainly be going by now.
I'll just add, again, no negative. I don't think she's dressed in an inappropriate way, but by Mormonism standards, she is dressed in an inappropriate way. So when you go back and look at the previous pictures, just the strings holding the dress on, again, no big deal to me, but to Mormons, that would be seen as sort of someone who's not signaling that they are a righteous, worthy, commandment-keeping Mormon.
Yep, exactly. So that's the confusion. Is she LDS? I don't know. I'm not sure. So at this point, things get even weirder. We came across this post where it's Caitlin in the middle and her brother, and then the Filipowski boys around her. And the post is from the brother Taylor, who we read one of his previous posts. And it says, super excited to be hanging out with my cousins. Haven't seen them for a while. And then Caitlin answers back, love you too. So for a while there, people were saying, could they possibly be cousins? That would sure be interesting. I kind of feel more like it's, when kids hang out together, they kind of grow up together, family, friends, like was discussed before, that you just kind of refer to people as your cousin. Like you might refer to an older adult that you're friends with as my auntie or something like that. So I don't know. Cousins, what do you guys think? And this certainly would not be proof in court, right, RFM, that they're cousins or second cousins.
I don't know. I mean, it's proof. It's evidence. Okay. Whether it's proof is up to the individual who's interpreting it. However, as Elvis Presley taught us, that we're kissing cousins, that's what makes it all right.
Well, I mean, there are only 5 people in the picture. 2 are Caitlin and her brother, and the other 3 are the Filipowski boys, and they say, happy to hang out with my cousins. So the cousins are not the brothers.
I think the thing that's surprising me about this story is what a prude you're turning out to be, Rebecca.
Me? In what way?
Well, I mean, there's like 6 years difference between these kids. It looks like they're very happy together. The course of true love never did run smooth. Yep. And now you're trying to paint them as, I don't know, she's a gold digger and they're cousins.
I'm just reporting the news, because I know if I talk about her extremely favorably, somebody will say in the chat, now, if this were reversed, if this were a man who was 24 and going to prom with an 18-year-old girl, so you have to be kind of fair and balanced in how you present the whole thing. So I don't know. All right. So let's talk about what happened, because really the bigger story may not be the age or the grooming, but the story is how far he fell in the draft. And obviously the coaches thought there was enough there that it drastically changed the trajectory of his career. I mean, it did. So he's now the 32nd pick and he's going to the Utah Jazz. So how much money did this cost him? I think that's a legitimate question. His whole relationship and all the intrigue around it. So I went to, with the help of my co-host Landon on my podcast, I went to last year's draft picks, number 13. This is what Kyle was supposed to have been picked this year, right around 13. So last year, the 13th pick was somebody named Grady Dick, Toronto Raptors. He had 21.4 million all guaranteed. That's 5.3 million times a 4-year contract. So this is around the number that Kyle should have been expecting this year.
So Rebecca.
Yes.
Can you go back to the last slide?
Uh-huh.
Grady Dick, is that a name or a medical condition?
You know, I think it's a little of both. I'm not sure. Somebody get out a medical dictionary. We'll check it out. I'm sure that poor guy, has just heard about that his entire life. And now he's the one laughing. He's number 13 and he's with the Toronto Raptors. So to everybody in high school, right? That's what I would say. Okay, so let's see what happened last year with number 32. And again, this is just kind of a comparison of where Kyle might be now. So number 32 last year was Jaden Pickett. He went to the Denver Nuggets. He got 8.2 million 4-year contract with 5.2 million guaranteed. So this is a big difference. 13.2 million over 4 years and 16.2 million guaranteed difference. So whatever the intrigue is, whatever the scenario with the girlfriend and the estrangement and grooming, whatever the coaches thought that they felt in the air that made them step away, this is the reality right here. This is the difference. And that's probably where there was that video where Caitlin had her arms around him because, this is a big difference. And then I thought, okay, so if he is LDS, if he has converted, he's also going to have to subtract $820,000 a year-ish for tithing. So he really is on a downward slide, I guess. But anyway, the bigger picture here, and I put up one of my favorite silent movies, Trapped by the Mormons. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's a silent movie. You can find it on YouTube. What do you guys think? Was Kyle Filipowski trapped by the Mormons? Is this just an ongoing story that we're never going to really know what's happening until maybe they come out and do an interview? The bottom line is they're headed for Utah. They're headed for the Jazz. And I would think that they'll probably be sort of a celebrity couple around here. Thoughts?
I hope so. I don't even know if this guy's a Mormon.
I don't think he is a Mormon. I think she was a Mormon.
Trapped by the Mormons. I don't know.
I don't know either. What do you think, Bill?
Well, first off, the relationship stuff with like cutting off the parents and only her and her family go to the games, that's all a little odd. But again, if his family was sort of being overprotective, sometimes it's really natural for the kid to go sort of lean towards getting away from them.
Yep.
So that could also be sort of normal. And I also think the Utah Jazz of all teams drafting him 32nd sort of sounds like they sort of bailed him out and not to let him fall further. And they're the one team that would go like, oh yeah, Mormonism's weird. We're sort of used to it.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead and take the kid. And I'll also add, lastly, as a convert to Mormonism, again, I didn't have my babysitter hitting on me and getting engaged with her. But in the process of investigating and joining the church, my mom kicked me out of the house. She was really upset that Mormonism had taken such a prominent role in my life almost overnight. And she sort of seen it as the church had sort of captured me in a way. And so some of this sort of reminds a little bit of how my situation played out. And I think there are things that happen when Mormons try to convert people or build a relationship of trust, BRT, with somebody who's not a member. And there are lots of ways in which Mormonism kind of infiltrates relationships and creates distance between, say, me and my parents, me and my aunts and uncles, me and other people around me who cared about me. It sort of paints those folks as the bad people. And you see some of that sort of playing out in the language that the family's reporting that she used.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think about my own mother was a convert to the church back in the 60s, and her family very active in another denomination, Presbyterian. And that's exactly what happened. They eventually really cut each other off, kind of, because her family couldn't understand what she was now a part of. Like you said, it permeated her entire life at this point, and she, it was very uncomfortable to be around her family. So there was just naturally this distance, And I also know the experience of having kids, in the church wanting to spend more time with, and I totally understand family members that are doing what they do, so I think it happens organically, maybe not as sinister as somebody intentionally cutting somebody off. I think it's kind of natural. I mean, you had this scenario, RFM, where you joined as a teenager. What was your family like when you kind of stepped away and spent more time with, you said you had a good friend and spent a lot of time with his family?
There's a lot of stories to that. I'm gonna just briefly encapsulate it by saying they were basically okay with it.
I love it. Just cut right to it. It's because you want to get to your story, and I do understand. So anyway, I will say in closing, this is an unfolding story. There's so many facets to it, and there's so many, he said, she said, social media, hopefully at some point we will sort it all out, and we wish everyone involved in the story well, that we hope everybody will be okay and family relationships repaired and everybody feel happy. I think that's the bottom line. So, okay, on to RFM's story. Tim Ballard, back in the news again. We have not heard from him for a while. What is happening?
Well, the first thing is that he wants money. So we here at Newsweek Time Magazine,
wow,
the Mormon Newscast, we're not the only people who want your money. Tim Ballard does too, and you have a choice as to where you're going to donate your money. Here is a little a short that Tim put up in the last couple of days on X, I believe it is, or is it Instagram? Whatever it is, he put this up, and he's going to talk about he wants money, he needs money because he's getting sued all over the place, and he's going to talk about some of his legal victories that he's been having.
And I just want to say his eyes in this, RFM, he sort of, when you go online, you can read some of these conspiracy theories about the lizard people, and
oh my God,
he's got eyes of the lizard people.
Well,
So
let me say something about this. I just learned the other day that there is an AI feature where you can read something on your screen, like you're reading, and you don't want to appear to your audience that you're reading. AI will put eyes on you. So you may be looking down, reading. AI will make your eyes so they're just normal and they're blinking, but they're not quite normal. And I wonder if this is what he did. I wonder if he's reading off something and doesn't want to look like he's reading.
Well, I don't know. He reminds me of Fred Sinclair from the old Jim Henson TV show Dinosaurs. Remember that from the 1990s?
Yeah, reptilian.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, here it is.
Hey guys, I thought it's time to address this case again since there's lots of comments going on. Look, the bottom line is this. This has been a media circus. This has been an attack on my reputation, on my work. It's affecting children. And there's only been 2 times when things actually went before the court. And both times the judge dismissed. First on my wife for lack of any supporting evidence, which means the plaintiffs now have to pay the court fees that we've spent defending my wife. And we just got good news yesterday that another of the plaintiffs' cases was dismissed for the same reason. You can say a lot of things, but if you have no evidence to support it, it means absolutely nothing. We expect to see that continuing with a domino effect as each of these plaintiffs fall with lack of evidence. This is a money shakedown. They're stealing money from operations that will rescue children. They're stealing my livelihood from me, and we need your support. We just got recognized a few days ago in Mexico for all the work we've done there. I'm not capable of tricking the country of Mexico. The governor of Quintana Roo was there. The attorney general was there, and they recognize the amazing work that we've done. So these lies that we don't rescue kids, it's all part of this media circus to try to shake down foundations and my family for money. Please support us. By supporting us, you're supporting the kids. We have many more to rescue. We're more active than ever, but we need your support. So please, please, please donate to the Ballard Family Defense Fund that will keep my family running and moving, which will then allow us to continue our very important work to save God's children. Thank you so much.
It's a natural progression. So first off, he says, you have to donate money to save the children, and you do that by giving it to me Well, it makes sense, right? And of course, he could never. I mean, who could fool the government of Mexico? Nobody could do that. Is anybody there? Hello?
Yes, I'm there. No, sorry, we're taking a little nap. No, I had to shake my head at that too. Nobody can fool the government of Mexico.
I think he's already fooled the government of the United States.
Exactly. But again, it's for his family to keep his family up and running. And once they're good, you know, they've been made whole, then he can start taking care of the children. But the first important thing is that he needs to make sure that his family is financially solvent.
Yes. So we're going to talk about these two cases that he mentioned. He is largely correct about what he said in the video. Then we're going to talk about his recent fundraising efforts and some very interesting things that Rebecca has dug up there. But first, to these two cases. The first has to do with Tim Ballard's wife, Katherine, who was dismissed as a party to one lawsuit in May of 2024. So, in other words, the case was not dismissed, but she was dismissed as a defendant in the case. He's still a defendant in the case, and others probably are too. But she's off the hook, not he. So the second one is a physical injury while doing OUR training case. I put all that together in one sentence. Hopefully that'll help people remember this. It was dismissed against Tim Ballard on June 27th, 2024. That was just this past Thursday. So that makes that quite timely. So let's report on this, okay? First, the Katherine Ballard case where she was dismissed as a defendant. Here is the ruling on that. And this is the title for it. It was the 3rd Judicial District, Salt Lake County District Court, excuse me. And this is the case of AA plaintiff versus Timothy Ballard et al. And she was one of the et al. Until this order was entered on May 9th, 2024. So let me see here if I can, is there any way we can get that a little bit bigger, Bill? Because this is just a 2-page order. I think it won't hurt to go over So it starts with, before the court is defendant Katherine Ballard's special motion for expedited relief to dismiss the First Amendment complaint under Utah's Uniform Public Expression Act. Now, that's an unusual kind of act. It's a special kind of act that is in Utah. The motion was fully briefed, argued, and taken under advisement. The court now rules on the motion as follows. The act, let me just give you a little background. I'd never heard of this before, but very interestingly, there's an act in Utah about public expression. It's supposed to protect and provide those First Amendment protections for people who get sued solely for making statements that are protected by the First Amendment. Okay? So if you get a person who gets sued solely for making statements that are protected by the First Amendment, then this act comes into play. And what the act says is the judge then has to dismiss that case, or that person, that party in this case, with prejudice. In other words, she can't ever be added back in, no matter what evidence they might find in the future to try and link her to this. They can never, ever put her back in. It is dismissed with prejudice. And because of this act, attorney's fees have to be awarded to Katherine to be paid by the other side. Okay? So that's what's going on here. It's not just a dismissal. It involves this very specific act. Thank you, Bill. Could you put that up there in the little bit bigger font? Thank you. So the act applies to a cause of action asserted in a civil action, or a civil against a person based on the person's exercise of the right of freedom of speech on a matter of public concern, right? Here, the first amended complaint, and the first amended complaint, I believe, was when they actually added her, Katherine Ballard, as a defendant, because my understanding is, and my recollection is they went out of their way to add her as a defendant after they'd already filed the original complaint. So here, the first amended complaint alleges claims against Ms. Ballard and others for civil conspiracy, outrage, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, and negligence. Paragraphs 185 through 93. Remember how long this complaint is? Of the first amended complaint, quote and reference various public statements by Katherine Ballard in which she comments on her husband and issues raised in this and related lawsuits. The parties do not dispute that these public statements fall within the scope of Section 102, sub 2, sub C. So everybody agrees that all these statements in these paragraphs from 185 to 193 of the amended complaint are protected. So is there anything else that's actionable against Katherine that's set forth in this complaint? That's the question. Aside from these public statements, the first amended complaint contains only one paragraph explicitly directed at Ms. Ballard. That paragraph, which appears to be an introduction to the public statements that follow, alleges she was an employee of Operation Underground Railroad. She was paid over $100,000 per year, and she has been conspiring with her husband, Tim Ballard, to promote the couple's ruse and lie about the women he sexually assaulted, all for her financial gain, causing injury to plaintiffs. So that's paragraph 183. So that is an allegation which has absolutely no evidence to support it. And that's the problem. Yeah, you can allege stuff all day long. It's nice to have evidence once in a while to support your allegations, and they have none here. So if we go back to that, Bill. Thank you so much. Let's see here. All other paragraphs in the first amended complaint in which Katherine Ballard's name appears do not involve statements or conduct by her, but rather statements or conduct by others in which her name is referenced. Thus, all of the claims against Ms. Ballard rise and fall on paragraph 183, on 1 paragraph 183 and 2 public statements that fall within the scope of the act. You can probably see where this is going. So this is the end of the order here, of the act. The act, okay, paragraph 183 standing alone is conclusory. In other words, it is a conclusion about what happened. There's no evidence to support it. So that's a conclusory statement where you're drawing a conclusion with no evidence to support it. It is insufficient by itself to state a claim for relief. The claims against Ms. Ballard in the first amended complaint as pled therefore rely entirely on her public statements. Remember the things that are protected? If this was a motion to dismiss under Rule 12b-6 and the court was limited to considering only paragraph 183, the court would grant the motion and dismiss the claims against Ms. Ballard without prejudice and with leave to amend. But remember the provisions that I went over with you in summary about this act. The act, however, creates a unique expedited procedure for handling cases that fall within its reach. First, it imposes a stay of the proceedings against the person invoking its protections, and then it cites to it. Second, it requires an expedited hearing, which is what this was, and if requested by the non-moving party, discovery on the claims alleged. And third, if properly invoked, it shifts the burden to the non-moving party to establish, based on evidentiary facts, not allegations, and using a Rule 56 standard, a prima facie case as to each essential element of the cause of action. Fourth, if a prima facie case or if a prima facie showing is not made and the moving party shows the complaint otherwise fails to state a claim for relief, the court must dismiss the claims with prejudice. Fifth, the court must award costs and attorney's fees to the prevailing party. The act, in short, accelerates consideration of the merits to the very beginning of the case and carries serious consequences for all parties based on that early consideration. So following the analysis required by the act, the court concludes, first, Ms. Ballard has met the first requirement and established that the statute applies. Second, plaintiffs are not government units, employees, or agents, nor are plaintiffs engaged in the business of selling goods or services, so the statutory exceptions do not apply. Third, plaintiffs have not presented evidence as opposed to mere allegations, establishing a prima facie case as to each element of each cause of action as they relate to Ms. Ballard. Fourth, as noted above, the first amended complaint, absent the challenged public statements, does not state a claim for which relief can be granted. As a result, the claims against Ms. Ballard are dismissed with prejudice. Ms. Ballard is awarded her reasonable costs and attorney's fees related to the motion to be established by declaration. This order does not dispose of all claims against all parties, and no judgment will enter at this time. Okay, so that is the order there. That's why the order was entered. And frankly, that's, I think, the way it should have been. I have gone over a lot of these declarations. It's been a few months now since I went over most of them. I went over a new one more recently last week. But these, I have had misgivings, which I have mentioned publicly, about the way these cases have been brought and the way these declarations have been drafted. They are done in order to generate a great deal of heat and, a great deal of heat and not very much light. And the light I'm talking about is the actual evidence, all right, and admissible evidence. So this is what happened. She's out of that case. Tim Ballard's not, but she is. And frankly, from the looks of this, I think that that was the right call to make, and she should be out of it. And the other side should have to pay her attorney's fees for dragging her into this with no evidence of any wrongdoing. What do you guys think?
I just remember you saying all along, and you have covered these cases, that you didn't think there was much to it. I think you predicted this very early on. So that shows how fair and balanced you are.
Yeah, too fair, too balanced. The whole thing is this: is that I think the allegations that everybody's interested in, at least the ones that I'm interested in, have to do with the allegations of sexual assault that happened in and around the couple's ruse. Okay. And I don't think those cases are going anywhere as far as being dismissed. I think those are probably going to have to go to trial if they don't get resolved by agreement of the parties beforehand, but I doubt that they're going to be dismissed like this one was dismissed, only against Katherine Ballard and for the reasons stated. Your thoughts, Bill?
Just what you pointed out, which is if the evidence is weak or non-existent, we all shouldn't jump on bandwagon of claims just for the sake of having some beef with Tim Ballard or having some beef with Mormonism or Elder Ballard for that matter. That really things should be judged on their merit. And as you pointed out all along, some of these cases are either weak or the evidence is non-existent. Oh, I can't.
Did something with that, but can you put it back up there on the screen? I think I took it down and I can't get it back up, so to speak.
That's
all right. So I get to go to the next one. So now we get to talk about the case against Tim Ballard that got dismissed. Case against Tim Ballard dismissed last Thursday, June 27th, 2024. And this is the case where this woman over here, who is Jordan Bree Ryder, Righther, could be Richter, I'm not sure. I'll just pronounce it Ryder. Her case was not one of the cases about the sexual abuse in the couple's ruse so much as it was. I think the primary allegation that she had was that she was in an OUR training, and that as part of it, she ended up getting hit in the eye and her occipital bone fractured during this training. And so she had brought lawsuit for damages for that. And that seemed like a straight up kind of lawsuit to me. And then there was another thing that was sexual in nature, but it wasn't very well articulated. And you'll see what I mean by that as we get to this order. This is the order now dismissing this case against Tim Ballard and Operation Railroad, etc. So let me see what we have here on the next one. Okay, yeah, the factual background. I did cut these apart and I blew them up so we could read them. We're not going to go through all 7 or 8 pages of that order, just the parts that I think are important. Factual background. This action stems out of plaintiff Jordan Bree Ryder's involvement with OUR as an independent contractor to assist in operations performed by OUR directed at human trafficking. Ryder is a licensed clinical social worker and a former United States Marine. Her claims arise from 2 separate occurrences. First, she agreed to travel to the British Virgin Islands with co-defendants Cooper, Ballard, and others. Cooper was this other guy who's working on the rescue of the children, if we can call it that. I'll put that in air quotes for now. She claims that the group spent a week at a beachfront home and that she was to be Cooper's partner, pursuant to the couple's ruse. Ryder alleges that OUR adopted the couple's ruse as a procedure whereby Ballard and other men on OUR trips or operations would be accompanied by a female participant in the operation, acting as the male's sexual partner, so as to prevent detection by traffickers when the male would not engage with the women or children allegedly being trafficked. Okay, I think we all know what that is. The complaint contains significant detail about the couple's ruse, as allegedly described by Ballard, but it does not allege that all of the statements were made by Ballard to Ryder. Okay, so here's the thing. If Ryder is doing a declaration in order to support the complaint, and even the complaint itself is saying that Ballard said a bunch of things, but never that he said it to Ryder, that can be a problem. It also alleges that Ballard and others used the couple's ruse as a ploy to engage in sexual contact with such women outside the scope of the couple's ruse. But it does not allege that Ballard ever engaged in sexual contact with Ryder. And probably because he didn't. I mean, I would think if he did, she would have alleged it, right? Rather, Ryder's allegations in connection with the British Virgin Islands trip are that the trip essentially was a week of partying and recreation where any trafficking taking place essentially was created by Ballard's group while visiting strip clubs, and that Ballard attempted to goad Cooper to be more sexually aggressive with Ryder, and that led to her being sexually touched by Cooper under false pretenses. So that's the first claim. Second, Ryder alleges that after the trip concluded, she informed OUR that she would never participate in another trip, and that Ballard was creating a demand for trafficking on such trips because of his behavior. She claims that OUR enticed her to remain by offering her the opportunity to join an OUR Thailand operation. If you thought the British Virgin Islands was fun, wait till you see Thailand. If she could pass a 4-day training in Salt Lake City. At this training, she was struck in the face by 2 OUR operators involved in cosplay training, resulting in an orbital blow fracture and ongoing injury. She claims Ballard was present during the incident, but refused to call emergency services. Let me read this footnote here. The only possible exception would be paragraph 60 of the complaint, which alleges that before going to the British Virgin Islands, plaintiff was required to go to a strip club in Salt Lake City so that she could prove herself to Tim Ballard and Matt Cooper, where she was sexually touched under false pretenses. This is the complaint. The complaint provides no detail regarding who engaged in this conduct or what the sexual touching consisted of. It's a remarkable failure on the part of the complaint, I have to say. So there it is in the footnote. It'll go on now and say what it is we're going to do with this. Believe it or not, I was kind of shocked to see this. Believe it or not, after the British Virgin Islands trip and after the 4-day training for the Thailand trip where she got injured in on-the-job training, right? It's on-the-job training. This would be a straightforward case of personal injury. After both of those things happened, the plaintiff, signed a release of liability. Yeah, that's important. This is why this case got dismissed. Both motions seek dismissal of all claims based upon the release of liability in the independent contractor agreement. The release contained in paragraph 7.2 contains 2 sentences. The first reads, and when it says 2 sentences, they're paragraphs, but they're sentences that are paragraphs long. So here's the first one. And this is what shoots her claims out of the water and why they get dismissed. I hereby agree that my assignees, heirs, successors, distributees, guardians, legal representatives, and any and all other persons or entities who may claim by or through me in any way or manner, voluntarily release from liability and forever discharge company, which earlier would have been defined as OUR, etc., its successors, assigns, agents, representatives, officers, directors, employees, contractors, attorneys, insurers, or any of its affiliated individuals or organizations, no matter how designated or described, for any injury or damages up to and including death, including property damage to any personal property which I may own, possess, or have any interest in, and which shall include such injuries or damages from negligent acts, other acts, or omissions, howsoever caused by any employee, agent, representative, or contractor of company or any of its affiliated individuals or organizations. She signed that. And so it got dismissed. What I'm surprised at is that they filed this case in the first place, presumably, and I'm going to say presumably because I don't know this. I mean, it's possible the attorneys didn't know that she had signed this and she didn't tell them. They didn't find out till after they'd filed it. Okay. But she signed this. And then they file a case against OUR and against Tim Ballard. And OUR and Tim Ballard say, she signed this release of liability. And the judge says, really? And so the other side, the plaintiffs try and say, oh, it's ambiguous, and the judge says, no, that's not ambiguous. That's totally clear. It doesn't really make any difference what's in the second sentence. If you want to read that, you can. But the first sentence is clear, and that's what knocks it out of the park as far as it being dismissed. So that was the name of that tune, and that's why that got dismissed. Now, the judge does go further in her order and talk about the other claims and the other arguments and the other motions that were made to dismiss it on other bases. And she does basically say, there's really no evidence here for this. There's not enough evidence for that. And I would have dismissed him anyway. Judges sometimes do that only because they're contemplating appeal. And they want to make sure the record is clear that if on appeal, the judge says, no, I disagree with you, and I don't think that this should have resulted in a dismissal of the case, even though she's signed a release of liability, and it seems pretty black letter. If a judge says that on appeal, then she has covered her bases in addressing the other issues and saying, I would have dismissed anyway if I hadn't dismissed on this basis. Any thoughts?
Do you think it could be just, and you kind of talked about this before, the lawyers just kind of piling on, like there's this and this and this and this, you know what I mean? And just, but it looks so bad then when it's dismissed, because then it gives him, you know, permission to go and say, hey, look, everything's getting dismissed against me, right? So
Right. And you know, that's what he should be doing.
yeah, I guess
Absolutely. He's racked up 2 wins. I mean, one of them's a win, one's a win for his wife.
Mhm.
And he wants to portray this as, you know, everything's getting knocked out of the court on motions to dismiss. I don't think it's going to continue that way, but we'll have to see. I don't see any motion to dismiss on a person, a plaintiff, saying he touched me sexually without my permission. Okay, that's not going to be dismissed.
Have you ever seen anyone sign a release after they were injured? And then is it possible she didn't understand what she was signing?
It's possible, but it doesn't make any difference. She signed it.
Right.
You know,
Why-
you can't go back and say, oh, I didn't understand what I was signing. Otherwise, everybody would say, I didn't understand what I was signing, and half of contract law would go out the window. I'm sorry, Bill.
No, just that. Why doesn't every company, when they get new hires, throw this in with a piece of paper with everything else? Because most of us, when we take up a new job and we're given the 12 pieces of paper we have to fill out and sign, we sort of just gloss over it, sign the things, and it seems like every company could sort of get a waiver of any sort of wrongdoing all the time. And I'm just curious why more don't do that. Any thoughts there as a lawyer?
Well, they do.
Well, yeah, but not to
They
that
do.
extent.
If you go and do any, I mean, go whitewater rafting, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You got to sign paperwork that's
Yeah.
going to release them from liability of any bad thing that happens on that trip.
And then
That's
if they molest me in the shadows, then I can't sue them. I mean,
No, I think that would not be covered.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I
think
just
that
want
would
to know
not
where
be
the
covered.
line is.
I think that there's a distinction being drawn by the judge, especially because this was signed after the
That's what's
causes of
weird.
action that she's alleging had accrued. So
Yeah.
I think that, you know, in this, okay, well, you signed it. So you released them from liability.
Huh.
So let's make this into a teaching moment, shall we? Okay, if you get your skull right here, like, you know, fractured, okay, if you get injured by a company or by an entity or an organization or people relating to that, okay, and you got a good lawsuit, try not to sign a release of liability after that.
Yeah. And somebody asked in the chat, how can that be retroactive? That's what I would think. She's
Well,
signing
especially
it.
retroactive. The
It is.
prospective part, like Bill brought up, that's the
It's
question.
completely-
That's the more difficult question. But if you say, I'm going to release them from all liability for anything they've done, and then you
And
bring a
they've ever
lawsuit
done.
saying, hey,
They-
before I signed this release of liability, they did this and this to me. And the judge says, well, I don't care. You signed a release of liability. Dismissed.
It's a cautionary tale. If you get
It is.
hurt at work, don't sign anything. If you get run over by a FedEx truck, for heaven's sakes, don't sign anything.
And it's quite possible that she didn't look at it. But then again, okay, look, I'm not trying to peel back behind the veil and see what's really going on here. But it's a strange thing to me. I'm just going to say it's a strange thing. I don't know the whole story, so I'm not making any allegations here. But if you've had your face busted open and you've also been touched in a way sexually at the strip club in Salt Lake City as part of prepping for the couple's ruse, right? All that kind of stuff. Why are you signing any kind of independent contractor agreement with this company after that?
Right.
One would think you'd want to not have anything to do with that company after that. So I don't know. But I know that 7.2 was the release of liability and it got dismissed because of that. Anything else? I'll keep going here in a second. Okay. Hey, Bill, is this the one? Are you putting it up? Thank you very much. Okay. That's where it talks a little bit about the ambiguity thing. I'm not going to talk about that. I want to get right to the fundraising again. Tim Ballard, it says 21 hours ago, but of course, this was more than 21 hours ago. But he wants to thank, this is Tim Ballard speaking. Hey, Bill, could you do your best, Tim Ballard, and read that? No, he's a little bit louder than that.
Oh, sorry. I want to thank you all for your prayers and support during this very difficult time. Many of you have asked us to repost the Ballard Family Defense Fund info. Not only has our very livelihood and that of my children been threatened, but so has our mission to rescue God's children throughout the world. But we will never back down. We will never stop. But we do need your help. Please consider donating to the Ballard Family Defense Fund to ensure our mission is able to continue.
Hashtag unfounded, which could
Hashtag
describe his mission to save Marty Gardy, I think. Unfounded. Because he's never founded that kid. Anyway, so that's that. And then this past Saturday, right?
Is that new? Can I just ask? I thought that was new. The Ballard Family Defense Fund. Have we heard about that at all in the past? Has there ever been such a thing?
I'm not sure when it started.
Yeah, I feel like it's newer.
Well, I'm sure it started after he started getting sued all over the place.
Right, because it used to be OUR, donate to OUR, save the children. Now it's donate to the Ballard Family Defense Fund so our family can be okay, so we can save children.
Right. Well, of course, he's not with OUR anymore. And hasn't been since before, about a year ago when he got kicked out or asked to step down or whatever happened. And now he's with the Spear Fund or something like that. He's created a different one. But, and here, this is something that Rebecca found out. Now, I did a show last week where I talked about an invitation for last Saturday night, which was June 29th. And it was an invitation from some anonymous person who is obviously a friend of Tim Ballard saying, here you can RSVP for this event, right? And it was up at Eagle Mountain in Utah. And I understand that's a pretty nice community. Is that right, Rebecca? You have a house there? You live there?
I do not have a house there, but it is, kind of in my neck of the woods for sure.
Right. And so I saw that, I read that, but you found something else which has very, very an interesting part to it. It's an evening with Tim Ballard. It's the same night, Saturday, June 29th, 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. If you go over here to the right, look who's the host. The host of this event is the Eagle Mountain Cedar Pass Stake. S-T-A-K-E. The Eagle Mountain Cedar Pass Stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints hosted an evening with Tim Ballard in order to raise funds for his defense. And I'll just show you this. I took this 3-part invitation. I just sort of took the first part here so you can see it a little bit clearer. You can see the date underneath it. Here's the next one in the middle. And this is about evening with Tim Ballard and about the event and, highlights. But here's the main thing, at least to me. Host details. Eagle Mountain Cedar Pass Stake. There's a picture. It looks like a stake center to me. About the host. Inspiring and positive events. Welcome to members, friends, and visitors. All are welcome. And here's the website link at the Facebook page for Cedar Pass News. Hey, Bill, could you check that Facebook page?
Yep. Facebook.
Yeah, I did that earlier today. They don't have too many current posts, but
what did you find, Rebecca?
I just found, it's information about Eagle Mountain Cedar Pass. They have pictures of youth conference and of course you have to join. I think that's obviously why I couldn't see anything that was really current, but just comings and goings in the stake, information, just like any other LDS stake page that I've seen.
Okay, so the real amazing thing is this. First off, let's go back. Let's recall that Tim Ballard, according to numerous sources, I think, did get excommunicated last year in September of 2023. So the question is, and he's wearing a t-shirt. I don't think that was a garment top in that Instagram video where he's asking for money for his defense fund. He is like making a point of the fact that he is not wearing his garment. Okay, that's just the way I see it. Maybe he likes to go out and just wear a t-shirt when he's doing these videos, but it doesn't look like he's wearing a garment. And it looks like to me like he's sort of making a point of it, if you know what I mean. And yet here we've got a stake in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints putting on a special event for him and raising money for him. And the crazy thing is, and I got to leave this to Rebecca because she's the one who found this out. Take it away.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I'm crazy too, being bored on a Saturday. I'm like, But I do have to point out before I go into this, the purpose of this meeting, it says for Tim to talk about the past, the present, and the future, and also ways that you can support him. So to me, that says fundraising. I think. Doesn't that kind of say that to you? Yeah, definitely ways that you can support him. So I read that and I looked at the stake and I said, wasn't he excommunicated in Eagle Mountain? Isn't that where he lives? Because I remembered Lynn Packer having done an episode on going to double check his story about having massive security around his house. So I reached out to some people who would know and said, without leading the witness, can you tell me where Tim Ballard was excommunicated? And the person, said, oh, it was Eagle Mountain Cedar Pass Stake. And I'm like, ooh, I started to get goosebumps. I know, I'm telling you, I'm so bored on Saturday. I have nothing better to do than this. And then I thought, okay, well, that's really interesting because I remember we all podcasted about the fact that it was a brand new stake president who had excommunicated Tim. We were all saying, good heavens, he's only been in a little bit and he has to do this excommunication. So I reached out to another friend and I said, can you please tell me who the stake president is in Eagle Mountain Cedar Pass? And the person gave me a name and confirmed that he is the stake president now. I don't remember, and I probably wouldn't say it anyway. Anybody can look it up, but you know me, I like to redact.
He's a double agent. We got to know who this guy is.
I just like to redact. I don't like to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm a Libra. Anyway, the story is just as good. So then I said, can you tell me, to my source, when he was made stake president? And he said, yes, this current stake president has been stake president since September 17th, 2023.
And Tim Ballard communicated on
September 27th, if he was 2023. So it is the same stake president. And whether or not this stake president knows that this fundraiser is happening, or maybe it's just his stake and they used his name, although I find it hard to believe that a stake president wouldn't know. Same person that's okay, number one, excommunicating Tim, and then less than a year later, having an amazing fundraiser and telling people in his stake that it's a worthwhile activity. So I don't know, things that make you go,
I don't know what to make of this. All I understand is that in September of last year, out of the blue, and the thing that started all of this hitting the fan in the public square was that the church released a condemnatory public statement about Tim Ballard and putting as much distance as they could between Tim Ballard and Elder Ballard, right? And they said some very not nice things about Tim Ballard in the process. He gets excommunicated the same month by the new stake president that they've just installed. In order to do it, I don't know. But he's excommunicated, and now, less than a year later, he's back at the same stake where he was excommunicated, and they're raising money for it. What do you think about this, Bill?
Again, I can't say what I know for sure because I don't know anything for sure, but you said it sounds weird, it sounds strange, it seems like funny business. Something doesn't seem right, does it?
No, that's an understatement. Well done.
It seems like he has the church's approval to be interacting again, asking for donations, and Elder Ballard again, sort of mysteriously, well, not mysterious, he's an old man, but died at the perfect moment to sort of get him out of the way of this whole story. And now all of a sudden, the stake president who would have been in charge of getting rid of Tim under that condemnation statement from the church is now at least seemingly giving tacit approval to fundraisers in a stake with Tim Ballard, which none of that makes any sense at all.
Here's what I think. If this stake president is not teaching primary next Sunday, then the LDS Church at the top leadership is behind this. And by behind this, I mean supportive of it.
Yep.
Otherwise, he's fired. He's got to be fired for this.
Well, and keep this in mind. So he's excommunicated. The stake president excommunicates him. Then it's almost like the stake president's role is to, I don't want to say protect the membership from him, but, you know, he's a part. There's certain things he can't do. Like I had a friend look at it in the handbook for me because I didn't have time. And it says, you know, those whose church membership have been withdrawn may not enjoy any privileges of membership. They may not enter a temple or wear the garment. They may not exercise the priesthood. They may not partake of the sacrament or participate in sustaining of church officers. They may not give a talk, a lesson, or a prayer in church, nor may they serve in a church calling. They may not pay tithes. And I'm on board with that one. They may not pay tithes. But again, they cannot address the membership, the body of the stake in any way,
Well, they can't give a
there has
lesson.
to be that. Yes, they can't even give a
He wasn't
prayer.
at the stake center. He's at another location, probably
Right.
at a person's house in the
Yes.
same stake,
Yes.
and zooming in, right? So, but
Yes.
did it say anything about fundraising?
Yeah, but they still apparently somehow someone in the stake said this guy's okay to listen to. I also think about President Nelson's talk where he said, do not take counsel from anyone. I mean, he doesn't specifically say excommunicated, but he alluded to anybody that wouldn't be on the same page. I would certainly think that an excommunicated member might fall into, that statement where he says, don't take counsel. So again, it's very confusing why now they're telling, if you remember back on that Facebook page, it said, this purpose of the page is to put out great events or things that are worthwhile for our members, and they're leading them right into the lion's den by saying, go ahead and listen to this. So, and again, I don't know if the stake president knew or it was just a person in the stake that wanted to sponsor it through that, but it certainly is unusual.
I don't see how the stake president doesn't know. And if he doesn't, then this was done behind his back and heads are going to roll. I'm sorry, Bill.
That's okay. Just to note too, like that I don't know if this is where you guys saw this, but somebody's picking this up. This was written today, Monday, July 1st, 2024. They're talking about the event being sponsored at the same stake. By the way, it says down here, according to current and former members, the LDS Church is familiar with its policy procedure. Hosting an event for an excommunicated member is not just a breach of policy, but a violation of LDS Church doctrine. Ward and stake members who knowingly hosted a church event through a church venue or medium, or even passed it off as a church-sponsored event for an excommunicated member, violate not just policy, but LDS Church doctrine. I suspect there will be consequences for those with knowledge of this event and those in the church leadership who approved it as a church function, regardless of who made that decision, stated a former LDS bishop who spent 41 years with the church. This is just not an ethical or procedural issue. This is a spiritual one in the eyes of the LDS Church, he continued. So you hit it on the head. If that stake president is still in charge next week, you have to assume that people at the very top of the LDS Church are finagling things to benefit Tim Ballard.
Yeah, and we did not see this article. We came up with all this stuff. What is this in again?
The American Crime Journal.
Well, they are getting their news from us, aren't they, RFM?
I'm not sure. I understand that on KUTV last night, the 5 o'clock news, there was a news story about this. We were not able to find it on the website. Maybe they haven't put it up yet, but I talked with Martine Smith, who's our witness in this. I talked to her earlier today. She said, yes, she did see it on the news. It didn't say a whole lot, except mostly just about there was a fundraiser, at least the part that she caught. There was a fundraiser for Tim Ballard, without going into any of these other, sticky bits that we've been talking about. So maybe it'll go up on their website later, or maybe it will just disappear. I don't know. But I tried to do the Wayback Machine and find it, and I couldn't find it there either. This story on Tim Ballard on KUTV last night. I think the bottom line is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints excommunicates this cat back in September. And in June, the following June, now they're raising money for him.
Strange things.
So that's the end of that story and the end of those stories.
All right. So far, both stories have made us just kind of go, there's more to look into, and I hope that our viewers and listeners kind of catch the bug, because it is really interesting just to kind of dive in and look at things and, be a truth seeker, right? Be a truth seeker. All right. Speaking of truth, we're moving into the next story about politics.
All right. And I'll be really quick. This is actually going to be quite short. So, there were a couple of different articles in the news this week that had to do with how the church is dealing with politics, and specifically how they're engaging American politics. So the Salt Lake Tribune released an article with shift to global focus, the LDS Church may be leaving the American political arena. And here were the 4 main points I took away from the article. 1, the church is making a stronger effort to maintain political neutrality and avoid endorsing specific national policies that might conflict with the diverse political views of its international members. Again, the church is declining in developed areas, which for the most part is going to be the United States and say England or other places like that. And they're growing in developing countries like Africa. And because the landscape of where membership is growing is significantly different than it was a decade or two ago, the church is to a point where it has to reduce itself being seen as an American church and doing things in a way that deal head on with American politics, and has to be sort of self-aware of its diverse membership and specifically where it's experiencing growth, and has to sort of cater to those areas and not offend them. And so it's having to sort of renegotiate how it handles involving itself in politics. The second thing it noted was the church's intentional, the voided thing of not taking sides in the Russian-Ukraine war, and also removing national anthems from its new hymnal that has already started to come out. And so national anthems are no longer part of that.
By which I think they mean the U.S. national anthem, right? Did they have national anthems from other countries?
Yeah, hymn books in other countries had those countries' national anthems, and in all the hymn books across the globe now, those will be absent. So the church is sort of getting away from showing any sort of preference towards nationalism in any place that it is present. Then the next thing was that the church urges its members to carefully, and it's always done this, but I think there's mentioned in the article of it being more emphasis. The church urges its members to carefully evaluate candidates, vote for those who demonstrate integrity, compassion, service, irrespective of party affiliation. It's important to keep in mind the church has always done that in terms of how it talks out of its mouth, but behind the scenes, it has always been very supportive of the Republican Party. 9 out of 10 politicians in Utah, in spite of the population being around 50% Mormon, 90% of the politicians are Latter-day Saint Republicans. And so the church seems to do most of its effort in getting things done and working with politicians, and those who seem to represent their constituents seem to be Latter-day Saint Republicans. And then the last thing is they're trying to avoid diverse political opinions because of the fact that it's a worldwide church. Diverse political opinions exist within the church worldwide. Let me say that differently. The last thing it says there is that the politicians that are Latter-day Saints, the church is trying to make a point, the Deseret News, the Salt Lake Tribune, are trying to show that, hey, we've got Republicans, we've got Democrats, we are all across the board, we believe lots of different things, and which has always been present, but I don't think to the extent that you're starting to hear that sort of point of view emphasized. And then the other article was Salt Lake Tribune as well, latest from Mormon land, plan for even more immigrant-friendly LDS Church. And I got to say, I don't remember what year it was, but back in the early 2000s, when the church came out with its new policy that illegal immigrants shouldn't be deterred from joining the church, that wards and stakes should support them in joining, that they should have access to the gospel in the exact same way. I remember there being a lot of members who were sort of like, I don't know, this doesn't really mesh with our respecting the laws of the land. And I just want to say the church has continued this effort and initiative to be supportive of immigrants. And in the article, they made note of 4 things that had gone on recently. One, that the church endorsed twice the Utah Compact, which called for federal immigration reform with an eye toward compassion and keeping families together. Apostle Dieter Uchtdorf, himself a 2-time refugee, praised it as a pillar in the immigration debate. Now, the church did that. That doesn't cost them anything, but they did that. And then in the first major policy statement under President Russell M. Nelson, the church urged Congress to protect from deportation dreamers who were brought to the U.S. illegally as children by family members. That also doesn't cost the church anything. The Global Faith launched a worldwide push to assist refugees with its I Was a Stranger initiative and routinely sends supplies to help displaced people. And this program would have some cost to it, but nothing extremely significant. And then in some places, I know ex-Mormons, post-Mormons give the church a lot of flack for not using its buildings to help out in the public arena, such as a homeless shelter. But it did make note here that meeting houses have doubled as welcome centers in places like Las Vegas and Mesa, Arizona, helping newcomers to the U.S. That would also be a low-cost thing that the church does. So the reason I keep mentioning either no cost or low cost is because the article finished off with a few people who were asked to give sort of a critical pushback to the church's view, and each of them were suggesting that the church should reach into its pockets and put its money where its mouth is and spend some significant funds. They suggested 1% of the funds that they have accumulated in that either 165 billion or 265 billion to help finance these initiatives. And I just want to give the church some credit. The Republican Party, I think more than the Democrat Party, is going to be one to want to hold illegal immigrants accountable. And the church seems to be taking a very different stance than the party that seems to represent the majority of Mormons, not all of them. And I also want to note in the previous article, I think this is a good thing. If you want to be a worldwide faith and you want to get away from some of your problematic facets of your religion and its history, you start to water things down. And one way in which you water things down is to stop showing favoritism towards your own city that you're headquartered in or your own country that you're in, and you start to treat everyone as if they're a member of the church on equal grounds and a disciple of Christ. And I think the church is beginning to sort of move that direction. And then I'll just finish off. I watched the debate this week. Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It was more interesting to me than I expected it to be. And folks are probably wondering who we here at the Mormon Newscast support in the 2024 election. And who it is, by the way, folks, it's Make Adam God Again. It is MAGA, but it's not the MAGA some of you were hoping I would say, or maybe hoping I wouldn't. But let's make Adam God again. Bring back the Adam God doctrine, which is a favorite of yours, right? Radio Free Mormon?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we should bring that back and just start teaching about it in general conference again, like we used to.
Yeah, when real prophets ran the church.
Back when prophets were prophets.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
I have family members, extended family members, who have always just written in the name of the current prophet for president. They've been doing it for about 6 decades now. So,
any luck with that?
Not yet. They're just hoping.
Yeah, that'd be a big write-in campaign.
Yeah. Makes it easy. Just
now, if they announce that in October, that would be the October surprise.
That would be awesome.
What do you guys think about the church moving towards really acting like it's a worldwide faith and not preferencing or prioritizing American politics?
I think the Salt Lake Tribune is starting to become more like the LDS Church's version of Pravda. All they're doing is putting out all this BS. Because frankly, excuse me, when you say, oh, we're not going to focus so much on our city. I mean, they're making a huge amusement park there or something in Temple Square, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And look at all the other stuff they've done at the middle of Salt Lake City. So don't even try and tell me that, okay? Salt Lake Tribune. And this other thing about not getting mixed up in politics so much. Am I really supposed to think that the only time a United States senator was at the beck and call of the first presidency was that guy, was it Morton Smith?
Oregon. Yep.
Yeah, from Oregon. That
everyone should watch
recorded that. And leaked. And I played that recently. No, I don't think he's the only Mormon politician that is at the beck and call of the first presidency. And I don't think that's changed. And I don't think it's going to change. I just think that this is the message that they, by their polling, know people want to hear. So they're saying the message. The Salt Lake Tribune is carrying their water for them with this message. But I don't think things have changed at all. Behind the scene, the same game is still being played in the smoke-filled rooms. That's
For
my
all we
opinion.
know, they're moving on to the global stage. That's a
Yeah,
way to
one world
say it.
government.
I'm not going
Absolutely.
to focus here, right? Now it's going to be more of a global stage. And I believe they play the long game. I mean, as you know, I watch Temples, a Temple Buster, and the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act that 3 LDS senators passed. That was way back in 2000. And
Oh,
it
you mean
set
the Big Steeple Act?
the Big Steeple Act. Yes, that's exactly what it is, that they used to be able to force city governments to put up a big steeple. And, supposed to be used as a shield against discrimination, but used by as a sword by the church. I mean, that act was put in place in 2000. And I think they play the long game, because here it is 24 years later, and it's being used all the time, everywhere. So I think they're more savvy than that. I think you're right. They say what they think we all want to hear.
What I see is that the more power the LDS Church gets, the more they abuse it. The LDS Church is an institution that has proven itself to be unsafe with having power. But when you've got 157 billion dollars in the bank, that comes with a lot of power.
Yeah, I think so too. Wow. Do you think we've covered it? Those were some pretty big stories with a lot of question marks on some of them, huh?
I'm still waiting to find out if this basketball player guy is a Mormon.
I wish somebody would tell us. I saw a couple of pictures where he's wearing a cross, but then again, that you can be Mormon and wear a cross now. We talked about that.
Yeah, it doesn't actually
times
burn
on
the
the
skin
newscast.
anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't burn your skin anymore. In fact, I came across, gosh, I wish I would have posted this. Somebody on social media showed some shots from girls' camp somewhere, and there was a cross erected at girls' camp as part of the inspiring iconography there. I mean, when I was at girls' camp, if somebody would have put up a cross, I think they would have had to do an exorcism on the whole camp.
Yeah, in Mormonism, we got this weird thing where this is no good, but this is okay, and that's okay. And a couple of these, peachy.
Are
But
you dancing?
none of this.
I
We
feel
don't
like
want them
you're
crossing
dancing.
each other. They can be side by side. Not like that. No, that's no
I feel
good.
like those were your dance moves in the 70s. I feel like maybe it was something like that. Maybe you were one of the,
You point up and then you point down and you point up and you point down. Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Well, I think this was great. Let me ask, first of all, I want to give a plug for the podcast that RFM did on Sunday night. Sorry, Sunday night. The one about Chief say his name again, Minagawa? No,
You're going to get yourself sued, Rebecca, if you keep messing this
really
up.
sorry.
Keep trying.
I can't pronounce it.
I'm not going to throw you a life preserver yet.
But it was amazing. Okay, it was about the birch bark scrolls, and it was an amazing podcast. And I would like to encourage everybody to look it up and to watch it. So that's in the past. Tell us what's going on in the future on Mormon discussions.
Bill, can you take that one?
Can I say what's going on?
I'm sorry. I should take it because it's my show on Wednesday, right? We're going to have a special guest on. It's Colby Reddish, and we're going to be talking about some really, really interesting things that I'm going to get right on tomorrow morning. Now that we've got this show in the can and I can turn my attention to that. But yeah, it's going to be incredible. Colby's doing great stuff. He's got a slideshow put together, and we'll look at it. We'll see what's going on. I think it has something to do with Jacob Hansen, though if that's not the case, please forgive me. But it may be dissecting some of Jacob Hansen's arguments and seeing if they rise to the level of, I don't know, logic.
Yeah, I've heard it's going to be really good. I've texted a little bit with him about what you guys are going to do, and I think it's going to be amazing. And I don't think you've had Colby on before, have you?
Can you tell me what we're going to be doing then, if you texted with him?
Yes, it's, as I understand it, Jacob Hansen's arguments about polygamy deniers, just kind of
yes, that's what I thought it was.
Breaking them down, but then turning it back around and saying, look at the mote, the beam in your own eye, right? I always get that mixed up, and put it as far as how you look at the LDS Church. So it's one of those things.
Okay, yeah. It's all coming back to me. This is going to be such a great show on Wednesday. I hope everybody will tune in for that.
I was going to say, hopefully RFM will figure out what's going on by Wednesday. I'm sure it'll be great.
What are you doing at Mormonish?
We have an awesome episode with Cultural Hall. I'm so excited. This is a really funny episode. So you guys have probably all heard how Elvis got a Book of Mormon, right? Everybody knows that story, and it's half truth, half falsehood. It's just become this rumor. Well, I started thinking, well, who else what other celebrities or people of note or world figures have received a Book of Mormon. So I just went through and gathered like 30 people that have gotten a Book of Mormon and the circumstances around it. And so Culch and Landon and I kind of go through that. And it's pretty surprising, the people that have been handed a Book of Mormon. So that will be, it's called Celebrity Encounters with the Book of Mormon. And that will be on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And Culch, always entertaining, always fabulous. So if you don't tune in for us, tune in for Culch. He's amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Steve Martin story.
Yeah. Do you know what? That is one of them. And I explain how I inadvertently kind of didn't start it, but
started the rumor,
promoted it. It's kind of my
fault. Talking about a guy named Steve Martin. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to give away everything on your show.
Yep, no, but that's exactly what happened. It all started at the BYU library when some lady's daughter on a mission said, "Mom, we tracked it out, Steve Martin, and he's interested." And you know how rumors fly from there. I called 2 friends who called 2 friends who called 2 friends. And it all happened. So, and it's actually, it's an urban legend now, and it's kind of a joke. Even he has made comments about it. You know, no, I'm not a Mormon. I'm a wild and crazy guy. Yeah, he has.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's heard the rumor.
Okay.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, it's going to be a good episode. So, all right. Any last final comments? Oh, here we go. I saw this today. Tell us about this.
Yeah, just so first, let me just throw RFM's back up for just 2 seconds. Chief Mitiga let us know, I don't know, earlier, the day before or whatever, that him and the entire tribal council would be watching RFM's episode, and the lawyers were ready to sue RFM if he got out of line just once. And but he never commented during the show, and so I think this was a great episode, by the way, to update folks on what was going on there. And then just a little note, I put out a project that I've been working on for a few weeks. It's the top 15 evidences against Book of Mormon historicity. It's a YouTube video. And I just would encourage folks, if you've got anyone in your family who's sort of questioning or beginning to kind of wonder about things, I think it's a great video that runs through really quickly, 15 issues in about an hour, that helps people see all the problems that exist for Book of Mormon historicity. I used one of yours, RFM, which was the generational problem from Jacob to Mosiah II, and put that up in there as well.
Yes, 179 years. Is that the one?
438 years and 7 generations.
Oh, that part. I was talking about from the birth of Jacob to the death of his son is 179 years.
That makes no sense, huh?
Those Nephites, they took care of themselves. They were in the gym every day.
Well, they were. You've seen the pictures. Come on.
It was called Gold Plates Gym.
Gold Plates Gym.
Oh my gosh. No, that is a really good video. I watched today when I was at work. Don't tell. 1 through 3. So I'm not done yet, but it's short. It's only an hour, so you can speed through.
You're watching YouTube at work? I hope you're not getting paid for this.
No, I'm not. It was a very slow day, and I was preparing for this and everything. So
does your boss watch this show?
No.
That's a good thing.
What are you trying to say?
Nothing.
Okay. All right.
I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, I know you are. Okay. I think on that note, we're done. And we thank you to RFM, and thank you to Bill, and thank you to I have to say one thing that's really funny. I never, because I'm always technologically like kind of wary, I never have the chat up on my screen. And I did for some reason today, and which is why you probably saw me looking to the side. And you guys are just hilarious. This is the best audience. Yeah, the chat. And so I was a little distracted that time when you said, RFM, is anyone there? Hello. I'm like, yes, but I'm mesmerized by the chat because everyone is just hilarious. You guys are so smart. I just have to compliment all the viewers.
It's true. They're incredible. But I'm glad that you're mesmerized by the chat and not incessantly looking at your phone and texting during the episode.
Well, you know, sometimes I do that when I'm trying to gather more information to put on the newscast. It's always in real time. Come on, that's what's happening. So
when I see you on a show that I'm not on, I text you just to distract you.
I will tell you this, everybody. RFM often will text me and say, President Nelson has died. The first time he did it to me, I was on, I think it was The Backyard Professor, and I believed him because at that point I was trusting of RFM.
Yes.
I know much better now, but I really did believe it. And I thought, oh my gosh, do I need to tell Carrie? Should I let him know? Should we break the story? Thank God I didn't. And now I don't trust a word that you say. So
I've said it many times after, but the first time I said it, it was true.
Yeah. Well, there is that AI angle, isn't there? We don't know. We don't know what's happening. So, all right, let's let everybody get on with their evening. It was fabulous. We will see you again next week. Happy 4th of July, right? We should probably say that because by the time, you know, we won't see you again until 4th of July. So happy 4th of July, everybody, from the Mormon Newscast.
Yep. Whatever fireworks there is, we'll be touching on those next week.
Yeah. That's right. And don't forget our Facebook page. Everybody go and join. We put posts and all kinds of stuff from everything that we talk about on the shows. And we love your suggestions of stories that we can cover, because you can all be investigative reporters. It's a crowdsourced effort. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Semper Fi.